Hello and welcome to Talking Points here on France 24. Yesterday, France's newspaper of record, Le Monde, declared war to President Nicolas Sarkozy by accusing him of breaking the law. In a front-page story, Le Monde accuses the Elysées palace of violating the law protecting journalists from revealing their sources. Following stories in Le Monde and other media outlets about the role of Labour Minister Eric Woerth in the so-called L'Oréal heiress scandal. Le Monde claims the presidency ordered the counter-espionnage agency to find out who was leaking documents about the judicial probe and that such a probe was illegal. The authorities counter that the agency merely checked the phone listings to find out who was leaking the information and thus violating the secrecy of investigations. Some people in the opposition say we're witnessing the unfolding of a Sarkogate. So is this the case? What's the situation, and what's more generally the relationship between the power and the media here in France? With me to discuss the issue is Samuel Laufer, who's in charge of international affairs with the ruling UMP youth movement. Hello and welcome.
Thank you very much. Hello.
And across the aisle is Raquel Garrido, who's the national secretary of the Party of the Less. Raquel, let me begin with you. What do you make of this latest scandal?
Frankly, I think it's becoming, very, very hard to be French. We're making such a scam of ourselves. When you look at all the scandals with the Rome expulsions, and now this, we're looking like a banana republic, actually. And I feel that the French people are going to be very, very annoyed by this government that is portraying a very bad image of itself, and probably all of this is a way of also, talking about many things other than the pension reform. That's the point, that's the issue that should be in discussion in this country today. So, what can I say? The government is ready to do anything at all to protect its power, to protect an unfair and unpopular reform, an unpopular and an unfair minister, Eric Woerth. And it's crossing lines.
Well, after a strong start, firstly, I'd like to say that it's not so hard being French at the moment. And I mean, of course, what you're saying about the Roma and the perception abroad is an exaggeration. And I mean, the Jeunes Populaires are experiencing actually the support that there is for the policies that France is implementing. I mean, we're part of YEP, which is the youth of the European People's Party, and we're writing a resolution to call on for a global YEP resolution that we're writing with the Romanian youth that are part of the YEP in order to call for a solution for the Roma problem. I've been doing it. We've been working with them. It's been going very well, and they've not been insulting us for a second. We've had very clear signs of support from our Italian, German partners and others. So I'd like to say, firstly, that we have to realize what's true and what's not. Regarding the pensions reform and how the government is supposed to be trying to take the attentions off of it, precisely the opposite has been going on. The government's been saying from the beginning the whole Woerth story, and I mean, let's not even call it a word, Sarkogate or Woerthgate, because this just refers to historic events of the United States that are really not taking place in France. But throughout, the revelations, so-called revelations that have been taking place in the Woerth, in the Woerth story, the government has been saying this is an attempt, and rightly so, I believe, this is an attempt to take the people's attention off the actual pensions reform and trying to get it more unpopular by trying to discredit the minister that's carrying it forward. But what the government wants, what the UMP wants, what the Jeunes Pop want, is to talk about this reform. That's absolutely necessary for France, and that will be understood by the French. We're confident about that.
Raquel, are you shocked that the presidency, if so, I mean, the presidency denies it, would order an agency to look into who is leaking information on a sensitive issue? I mean, we've seen that film several months ago when there were rumors about marital infidelity within the presidential couple. We know there was a similar investigation that was launched. We don't know what came out of it. But is it normal? I mean, the government and the agency says it's just normal. We're just checking things, phone listings, software, and so on. This is our job to protect the state.
I'm pretty sure that we will find out that there are big abuses. It is similar to the Gate, the American Gate, because of the denial.
How can anyone be sure of such a thing?
Well, how come you're not saying anything about the fact that the chief of staff of the penal affairs, criminal affairs, the Minister of Justice, is currently posted in Cayenne, in Guyana, because of this affair. I mean,
yeah, let's just for our viewers, just let me briefly intrude. I mean, the story is that an official within the Ministry of Justice is suspected, apparently, of being one of the sources of several reporters, including from Le Monde, and that he was recently demoted and sent on a mission overseas.
Isn't that crazy?
Well,
Isn't that good for for a Hollywood scenario that you would have someone close to the minister whose relation with the press is discovered by counter-espionnage, and then the guy turns out posted in Guyana?
It's not a James Bond movie. It's not the Nixon case happening again. It's someone who appears to have lost the minister whom they work for's confidence, and then the decision comes from the minister to actually change their accreditation, change their mission. Regardless of that, you cannot just go forward and say, I am sure we will find out about this, because we don't know. It is true. I mean, it is true that there are routine checkups of what goes on. You need to be, I mean, the state and the government need to know what information is coming out of ministries, of people who are entrusted with ruling France, to media outlets who may use them in any manner. Not that, information must be retained, but the state still, I mean, the government's job is to rule France, and they still should be careful about what goes in and out, just like it would happen in any if at France 24 someone was giving away information about the channel and difficulties going on here, you'd be wanting to know who it is.
But what about the
principle? No one's been tapped. I remember the 80s tapping half of Paris, tapping the flats of half of the journalists in Paris. It's not Sarkozy. It's not the current Elysées. We never called it the Mythgate or anything. So
Samuel, I'm not sure you're understanding how profound this is.
I'm doing okay for myself. Thank you.
Sorry,
there's no need to worry about me here. Really.
If there's no secrecy of sources, there is no journalism. If you have no journalism, you have no democracy.
I don't think I've said anything like that.
You cannot, push away what's happening right now by saying this is an administrative internal procedure internal of the cabinets. No. What's at stake is the mere possibility, physical and concrete possibility, for the Le Monde in this case and other media to do their job, which is informing the public. So
and firstly, the justice must do its job, and a lawsuit was filed, and let's wait for what you will find out.
Think of all the potential sources in the government, in administration, wherever today, that would be for X or Y reason envisaging to speak to the media, which would be good for the public, right? Think of how they feel right now. Think of the pressure. This is a terrible, it's a system that is winding up on people and telling them, listen, you better shut up, not talk to the public, and not talk to the press, or else you will wind up in Guyana. And that's the kind of country you guys are building.
Guyana, firstly, is part of France. No, I mean, we can try to build some sort of psychosis here and try to, everyone's in danger, everyone in the street, be careful what you're saying outside cafes and all that. Yet this is not what's going on. You can try and exaggerate everything. And again, you're the one, I mean, the left are the ones trying to create some sort of weird atmosphere to divert the people's attention from what the government is actually doing. And this is just the same thing coming again. It's not going to work. You're not going to be able to convince the people that Sarkozy is some sort of autocrat trying to control everything that's going on and to keep the press from being informed. Because Sarkozy, firstly, has been one of the presidents that's done the most for the press, and let's talk about all the support that's been put in place for French press and to attract the youth to read the newspapers again and such actions. I mean, I received a French daily newspaper for free for a year thanks to the government's actions, and so did several 100,000 French youngsters. So I think that's good. So
but what's the point, Samuel, if you have no important news in that newspaper?
But has that been going on, really? Has that been going on?
Free how do you say s'abonner? Subscription.
Free subscription.
Free subscription to the newspaper. If what you read in the newspaper is not news,
but is that what's going on here?
Informing
You're not
what's going on.
The reality
we
of
are
France.
talking about how Liliane Bettencourt, the wealthiest person in this country,
Hello, and thank you for joining us on France 24 for this special edition. We're going straight to Sharm el-Sheikh to listen to the US Special Envoy to the Middle East, who is addressing the press.
Today's meeting lasted about 1 hour and 40 minutes. The meeting involved Prime Minister Netanyahu, President Abbas, Secretary of State Clinton, and myself. We all are grateful to President Mubarak to Foreign Minister Abulgate and to the Egyptian government for their courtesy and hospitality in arranging these meetings, and for their continued strong support for President Obama's vision of comprehensive peace in the Middle East. The day began with President Mubarak hosting separate bilateral meetings with Prime Minister Netanyahu, President Abbas, and Secretary Clinton. The Secretary also met bilaterally with the Israeli and Palestinian leaders. This was followed by the multilateral meeting, which I've just described, and as soon as I complete this briefing, I will attend with the other leaders a lunch hosted by President Mubarak for all of the participants. Today, the parties have begun a serious discussion on core issues. President Abbas and Prime Minister Netanyahu also reiterated their intent to approach these negotiations in good faith and with a seriousness of purpose. They repeated their condemnation of all forms of violence that target innocent civilians and pledged to work together to maintain security. All of us reaffirmed our commitment to reaching a shared goal of a just, lasting, and secure peace. Our common goal remains 2 states for 2 peoples, and we are committed to a solution to the conflict that resolves all issues with a state of Israel and a sovereign, independent, and viable state of Palestine living side by side in peace and security. President Abbas and Prime Minister Netanyahu continue to agree that these negotiations, whose goal is to resolve all core issues, can be completed within 1 year. As I said recently in Washington, the parties have agreed to begin first on working to achieve a framework agreement for permanent status. That work is now well underway. The parties agreed that for these negotiations to succeed, they must be kept strictly confidential and treated with the utmost of sensitivity. So, as in the past, today and as we proceed in the future, what I and they are able to disclose to you about the details of the meetings is and will be very limited. They agreed that after the leaders' meeting tomorrow in Jerusalem, their negotiators would meet again in the coming days to continue these negotiations and to lay the groundwork for the next round of talks at the leadership level. These face-to-face talks are critical for both sides to continue to build trust and confidence. As both President Obama and Secretary of State Clinton have said, the United States pledges its full support to the parties in these talks. We will be an active and sustained partner throughout. We will put our full weight behind these negotiations and will stand by the parties as they make the difficult decisions necessary to secure a better future for their citizens. Thank you very much for your patience. I apologize for the fact that you had to wait. The meeting did go on, as I said, for quite a lengthy period of time, and I'll be pleased to respond to your questions.
Okay, could we have one from Glenn Kessler from the Washington Post, please?
Thank you. Senator Mitchell, public rhetoric going into the talks, especially by the Palestinians, was strong, saying that continuing with settlements would wreck the negotiations. Yet Secretary Clinton held out the possibility yesterday that both sides could take other steps that would allow the talks to continue, such as an agreement on an agenda. Can you say whether you made any progress on that front, and if so, what?